Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Judge Jeanine completely takes down Jessica Tarlov while she cries over the ending of the Department of Education. This is a rant for the ages. Let's dive in.
And when I hear Republicans out there talking about their plan for education in America, I don't hear them talking about making sure disabled kids have access to a public education. I don't hear them talking about impoverished
kids. Because we're against it.
I know you are. Thank you for admitting it on such a public forum. They want to end up privatizing it. They want a voucher system, which means that kids who can't get to those schools, don't have enough money to, or frankly want to go to public schools, won't have access. And they also have all of these religious kooks, like the superintendent of Oklahoma who wants to spend millions of dollars on Bibles for the schools, Trump Bibles, because it's all a grift. They want to make it private. They want to make them religious institutions. And that goes against what you're supposed to do in America. So does it need reform? Does it need to be made better? 100%. But come on.
All the Democrat politicians,
let me tell you
send their
You tell
kids
me.
to private schools.
I'm going to tell you.
All
Number
right,
one,
I'm ready.
Number one, we are one nation under God, and don't make a joke about that.
Do you think there should be Trump Bibles in public schools?
Number two is the issue that the Department of Education has wasted $100 billion a year. So cut the crap. You yourself admit they don't do any education. Now, you say that Trump is not dismantling. He's already dismantled with Doge. And let me make one thing also clear. Department of Education was created by an executive order by Jimmy Carter as a payback to the unions. Subsequently, Congress came in and created it, and we're going to end it the same way with an executive order dismantling it, subsequently finished by a decision by Congress. Now, let's be real clear. All of these issues, as it relates to Pell Grants, special needs, all that stuff is being moved to different departments within Washington. They are not being eliminated, and don't make it sound like these kids are being forgotten, because they're not. But if you want to talk about no child left behind, if that's what the Democrat liberals believe in, that screwed us up, screwed our kids more than anything, because no kid left behind made sure that every kid passed. And now we've got kids who can't even read at 8th grade level because they were passed. We have a 19-year-old who graduated with honors who can't read proficiently. All of this Democrat nonsense labelism is for the birds. And let me tell you one more thing. The Constitution does not guarantee an education. It is not a federal right. It is not a federal issue. It is something that, under the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, is left to the states. The state constitutions have provisions where you have a right to education. But this is something that is for parents and for educators, for teachers, that we do love. We don't love Randi Weingarten and what she did to our kids when she couldn't find one metric in the billions of dollars that we gave her to open the schools to make it safe enough for her and her pals to go to open up those schools. You know what, Randy? Go back to Ukraine for the third time to try to figure out what they're doing in education. And let me tell you one more thing. I'm not done.
One more thing.
One more thing is these kids in China and in Russia that were studying quantum physics while our kids were hiding and doing drugs and alcohol, and the kids in Norway and Denmark and Sweden. We spend more money per kid than any country in the world, and we're losing because of the Democrats. And that's the end of that.
Thank you so much for this dressing down of Jessica Tarlov, for this pearl clutching over the Department of Education, which has failed by every single possible metric ever since it got implemented during the Jimmy Carter years. Just another level of failure and incompetence from the Carter administration, and I'm really disappointed that it didn't get dismantled by Reagan. But I guess they had hope in those days that government might actually be able to help, when we see time and time again that it can't. And Jessica Tarlov is out here thinking that, oh, this is going to hurt disabled students. I highly doubt that based on certain laws we already have on the books. By the way, if you decide to throw these kids to the curb, there's going to be public outcry so bad that it'll sweep Democrats back into office. So again, I highly doubt that's going to happen. What is going to happen with the end of the Department of Education will be an attempt for the states to finally get the message and start really trying to dismantle No Child Left Behind and the act that came after that in 2015. I'm forgetting the name of it at the moment. And start caring more instead about trying to cater an educational experience that's going to help the students of that particular state. For instance, kids in Oklahoma are going to need a different kind of education than kids in New York State, okay? And speaking of kids in Oklahoma, by the way, we have to dispel a rumor here that, oh, the superintendent of Oklahoma decided to buy Trump Bibles. No, he was allowed to buy Trump Bibles, okay? That was already a bit of a problem, in my opinion. I don't like that. I don't want students who have no idea what the Bible's going to say, and then have one thrust upon them. That does not make any sense. That's not how education happens, but I would rather be a part of a state that's trying something new than staying with the status quo. And that status quo is No Child Left Behind, which has done nothing but leave students behind. It has been an awful piece of legislation that has done nothing but excuse bad legislators to avoid sending money to certain areas because it makes them feel better about themselves and it makes it easier for that political process. It's just a sad testament to what Washington really does with their legislation. It's like something that I constantly see up on the Tim Pool show. That, you passed the Puppies for Everyone Act? No, this legislation actually bans you from ever eating ice cream. That's what's going on. That's what happened with No Child Left Behind, and it gets even worse than that. But then we also have to take into account what Judge Jeanine is talking about when it comes to, and for just lack of a better word, Democrat-run schools. We've got schools across the country that on one hand are in good Democrat states. There actually are some. Washington State, even though they're crazy in some other areas, they actually make it easy for businesses to work. That's why their state isn't failing, and their education system isn't that bad either. But you compare that to something like Maryland, which has one of the worst test scores in the nation because of the city of Baltimore. Sorry, almost called it Boston, but they don't do too hot over there either. And those test scores are so bad because the schools keep on lowering standards, all because they're trying to pump up the test score needs that No Child Left Behind has championed time and time again. And it's time that this nonsense ultimately stops. Okay? This stuff does not help anyone. The way that we do test scores do not help students prepare for real life. All it is an attempt to move money across bureaucrats' hands. And then there's another problem that Jessica Tarlov wants to bring up, talking about, school choice is all about religious schools. Okay, first off, that's a bunch of nonsense. Second off, where do you think our schools got their start? It was the Puritans in New England. It was William Penn in Pennsylvania. It was that religious mindset that made education great in America. The average American was better educated than the average Briton back in England. All right? The colonies were doing it better than Great Britain was. Okay? I think that we have a better education tradition here in the United States, despite the fact that we look up to Oxford and Cambridge when we have Ivy League schools that now blow them out of the water. Somehow, I don't know how that is happening in this modern era, given how woke and ridiculous these schools have become. But when it comes to good education, when it comes to understanding why this stuff has failed time and time again, the real issue with No Child Left Behind is that it shifted the focus of American schools to be hyper-fixated on standardized testing. This has left millions of students unprepared for real-world challenges and teachers unable to teach their own curricula or make their own lessons. Standardized testing hurts students who aren't good test takers by leaving little opportunity to show proficiency in other areas of learning. And instead of talking about issues like this, Jessica Tarlov is talking about disabled kids? Really, Jessica? Are you that desperate to defend the status quo? And I will admit that Republicans don't get everything right. The attempt is at least an attempt to move in a new direction, and I applaud that. But maybe, just maybe, we need to start going a step farther with our educational system and break it apart at the local level and force schools to cater itself to an actual educational model instead of this shotgun approach of throwing everything at the wall and hoping that something sticks. We need more university model schools. We need more classical schools. We need more Montessori. We need to change the way we do our education system, or we're going to continue to lose ground to China, Russia, the Baltic nations. They all do education better than we do, and that is a problem for both our students and our future. We have got to change the way we do things, and if it takes the destruction of the Department of Education, I am all for it. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one, and until then, y'all have a good one.